Hey everybody, this is Shane with Mud Hog Mafia, and today's installment we're going to be installing the cams, the Maverick Race cams and the Maverick Race heads by Mr. RPM. And something you need to be aware of, the heads and the cams are specific to each cylinder. And one of the main differences is this is the front cylinder head, and you have a sensor that plugs in here, and on the rear head that cylinder isn't, or that hole isn't machined out. And that's the one main differences that I found in the two heads. But this is the front cylinder head. I've already installed the cam, adjusted the valves, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the same for the rear cylinder. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And also, you're going to check your, say for instance, you're using a stock head or a Maverick, stock Maverick head. First thing you'll need to do is pull your rocker arms off, and you're going to check your cam for clearance. And I've already checked them on these Maverick heads. Mr. RPM does a real good job of casting these heads already clearanced for these cams. But something I wanted to mention first before we get started is I didn't discuss the ARP head studs on the earlier video. And when you're running these head studs, it makes it a little bit more difficult to put your piston in a jug, you know, with your rings. And I had to install the pistons in the jugs off the motor and then slide it back on and attach it back to the rods. And these head studs, I did a lot of research, and I guess a lot of guys debate whether or not to use Loctite, and I also talked to a lot of people, and what I wound up doing, which seems like a popular consensus, is I used, this is called thread sealer, and you can buy it at your local auto parts stores. But basically, sometimes these head studs, when they're going into the engine case, some particular ATVs, they may pass through a water jacket, and all that's doing is sealing that hole off, you know, the stud sealing it off from the water jacket. On Can-Ams, I don't believe it passes through any water jackets, but still I used a thread sealer. And these are just, there's an Allen wrench opening in the end of them, and they're just all, I snugged them down by hand. They're not torqued. So when you do attach your heads, all your clamping force is going to be on your bolt and not on the actual stud itself. That's what I've read. So anyways, we're going to get started, and what we're going to do first is I'm going to this is the retaining clip for the cam, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And it's a good idea to when you're putting these rods, pushing these rods out that hold your rocker arms on, there's going to be a washer here and here. Make sure you don't lose those, and those need to go back in the way they come out. So we're going to push these out, And I'm gonna set them over to the side as the way they came out. This is your exhaust side and this is your intake side. And the cams are also specific to each head. On the Mr. RPM cams, you can see it says G2R, that's for the rear, and the front cylinder or in head will have an F. That's just an identification mark that they use. Okay, we're gonna take some, this is just regular engine oil, and I'm gonna lube these lobes up. And once again, like I said, I've already checked these cams for clearance, but usually what's gonna happen is they're gonna hit right here, here. But Mr. RPM, like I said, does a real good job of casting these already clearanced. And when you put these cams in, you want your lobes, you can see these lobes are both pointing down as best they can. And also, if you look here, there's a notch on the front of this cam, and what that is your cam gear on the back side of it. It has a tab that's going to line up with that, and that helps when you install your heads and you're setting your timing. It's making sure your cams are both pointing down, and you'll see later what I'm talking about. But next, what we're going to do, we're going to reinstall our rocker arms, and I'm going to put a little bit of engine oil on these. I'm going to install my front washer here, or hold it. You're going to push it almost all the way through and slide your back washer in. I'm going to use my little pick tool here to help me line it up. Now we're going to do our exhaust rocker arm, or my bad, our intake rocker arm. Oops. Sorry about that, I dropped my washer. Install our rear washer. And what I'm doing to hold that, keep from dropping that washer, I've got this rod up against the washer, and then I'm gonna just push it down in there with my pick tool. Now we're going to reinstall our retaining clip here, and you'll see that there is a notch here in this cam. It helps you line it up, and this is what's going to lock your cam in your head. And I'm going to use blue Loctite on this bolt. That's a little too much. And we're going to torque this little bolt down. Which is 89. No, this is going to be 22 foot-pounds. So I'm going to set my torque wrench here. My bad, it's 89 inch-pounds. But I'm setting it in metric because my little torque wrench doesn't go in inch-pounds, so it is actually 10 pounds in meters is what the torque setting is, which I've already got it set. And there we go. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to set our valves. We're going to go ahead and adjust them. These need to be adjusted to 16 thousandths, and all four of them, which is a little bit more than the factory spec, but these are a race head with a race cam, so you open them up just a little bit more. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with the exhaust first, and I'm going to tighten my screw. You want it to where that feeler gauge just barely slides through there. We're going to go ahead and tighten this down. And the end result is I'm wanting to not be able to slide 17 thousandths through there. So we're going to check it with 17 now. That seems perfect. That's exactly where we want it. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and set our second exhaust valve. Now we're going to check it with the 17 again. That's right where we want it. I'm going to check it with the 16 again just to double check my there we go. Now we're going to move around to our intake side. Now again, you can do this on the motor or off the motor, it doesn't matter, but I just chose to do it off the motor since I already had them off the motor to begin with. Now we're going to check it with the 17. That's a little bit loose. We're going to loosen this a little bit. I don't think it's right where we want to be. One more. Check it with our 17 thousandths. And I believe she's good. Next up, we're going to move on to placing this head on the motor. And over here, you can already see I've installed the cam chain on this side. I've got my guides guides in, and also something very important, there's also another guide down here that's the lower chain guide that helps keep the chain on the crankshaft. Now these Allen bolts are not factory, and what I've heard is these are prone to falling off and getting chewed up inside the case, and they wind up in your oil filter screen inside the engine case. So what I did is I've drilled and tapped and installed these Allen bolts that are held in with blue Loctite. So next up, we're going to slide our cam chain through here. And one other thing, don't forget your alignment pins. This will help you line your head up. And when you're installing these head gaskets, there's only one way they can go on, and you'll know because you should be able to see these water jacket ports in the jugs. So next up, I'm gonna slide this head on here. Sometimes you need to wiggle it around, make sure those pins are lined up. You know, with these ARP head studs, you have this, I'll just call this a spacer. That's gonna go on first. Then you've got your washers that go on next. And also, you'll find that it's virtually impossible to install the cam gear in your cam chain without these heads being torqued down first. There it is. And when you're torquing these bolts down, the Mr. RPM specs are 15 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern, and then 44 foot-pounds for your final torquing. And once you do that, you can you'll come around here and you'll install your cam chain on your gear and slide it on, and but we'll get to that here in just a minute. I'm going to get these torqued down first. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to set my torque wrench here to 15 foot-pounds. Okay, now we're ready for and like after which, for the sake to keep the video short, after you do the 15 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern, you go back, do 44 foot-pounds, and then your next up is you're going to set your cam gear on your head, and you pretty much will have everything buttoned up after that. But that'll be all for this video, and I thank y'all for watching. Stay tuned, and until next time, over and out.